Okay, moving on to number 4, 3 over k plus 2 minus 3k over k minus 3. So we notice that we have two fractions that are being subtracted from one another here, and the goal is to get them to have the same denominator because we're not able to add or subtract them unless they have the same denominator. So we'll start by multiplying this whole fraction by the denominator and the opposite fraction. And then same thing with this one, we're going to multiply this whole fraction by the denominator and the opposite fraction. Now, before you move on and do that, you want to check to make sure that you're not actually able to factor out any of the denominators and see if they have common factors. In this case, we can't factor k plus 2 or k plus 3 any lower, so we just leave it like that. Okay, so now we're going to distribute everything. So we get 3k minus 9 over k plus 2 times k minus 3 minus 3k squared plus 6k over k minus 3 times k plus 2. And then we want to distribute the negative to both of the terms because this whole fraction is being subtracted by the first one. And then once we're finished with that, we will combine any like terms. So we get 3k minus 9 minus 3k squared minus 6k over k plus 2 times k minus 3. And then the like terms that we have here, we've got the 3k, we have the minus 6k. So 3k minus 6k is negative 3k. So if we rewrite this, let's go ahead and put it in descending order, even though I believe in the answer it doesn't actually put it in descending order. 3k minus 6k is negative 3k. We're just moving this negative 3k squared up to the front, and then we have that negative 9 at the very end. K plus 2 and k minus 3, our common denominator on the bottom. And the answer for that one is A. Alright, let's look at number 5, the kinds of problems you all love dearly. Yx squared z to the 0 times 2x squared y to the negative second z to the third, all raised to the fourth power. And then the denominator is 2y to the negative second. Okay, so the very first thing that we want to do here is we want to take that 4 that is outside of the parentheses and distribute it to everything that's inside of the parentheses, including the 2. Can't forget the 2. Okay, we also can notice that we have a something to the 0 power, and anything to the 0 power is 1. So that gets crossed out. Okay, so aside from crossing that out, the only other thing we're doing is distributing the 4 to everything in the parentheses. And so what we're left with is 2 to the 4th power, x to the 8th power, y to the negative 8th power, and z to the 12th power. And then we still have that 2y to the negative second in the denominator. So next we want to go through and combine anything that has the same base. So if we start with the y's, and for no reason other than y comes first in the list of letters here, we can combine y to the invisible first power and y to the negative 8th. Remember, when you're going within the same line, you are adding the exponents, so 1 minus 8 is negative 7. Next we can do the x's, so let's do that. We have this x and we have this x, and again if we're adding the exponents together, x squared times x to the 8th, that's x to the 10th. Let's go ahead and put this 2 to the 4th power, which is 16, up in the front. It's always good to get in the habit of putting coefficients in the beginning of the problem. And then z to the 12th is down in the very end. It's all over 2y to the negative second. And now we want to see if we can combine anything across the fraction line. So 16 divided by 2 is 8. And then we can combine, once again, we can combine the y to the negative 7th and the y to the negative 2nd. So it's negative 7 minus negative 2. And negative 7 minus negative 2, remember the double negatives make a positive, so that becomes negative 7 plus 2, or negative 5. And then we don't have anything else to combine the x and the z with, so we will leave them there. 12. Okay, so that's all still in the numerator of the fraction, and we don't have anything left in the denominator yet. But remember, we can't have negative exponents left in our answer, so we want to move anything that has a negative exponent to the bottom of the fraction. So we have 8x to the 10th, z to the 12th, all over y to the 5th. And that answer is B. Let's see, I think we can get one more in on this video, so let's do number 6. So we have 6n minus 6 over 9n squared minus 15n plus 6. Okay, so we're going to go through and we want to reduce the numerator and the denominator as much as we possibly can. So on the top, they have a common factor of 6, so we factor it out and are left with n minus 1. In the denominator, they all have a common factor of 3. And if we factor that out, we're left with 3n squared minus 5n plus 2. Okay, so if I'm looking out here, I can reduce the 6 and the 3. 6 divided by 3 comes out to 2. And then, within the parentheses that we have left, we want to see if we're able to factor the denominator using the diamond. So we have 3n squared minus 5n plus 2. Alright, so we've got, in the top of the diamond, 3 times 2 is 6. And in the bottom we have negative 5. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to positive 6 and add up to negative 5. So that would be negative 3, negative 2. And I just want to remind you guys of the trick that we all learned in class, which is we can take that first term and create a couple of fractions here. This is the quicker way of going about simplifying these. 3n and negative 2 we can't reduce any further, but we can reduce 3n and negative 3 to n and negative 1. And the two reduced fractions become our factors. So we have 2, n minus 1 on the top, and then n minus 1 from over here, and 3n minus 2 over there. So let's see, that we have the n minus 1s that cancel out, and we're left with, as an answer, 2 over 3n minus 2. Okay, and always remember, you can't just cross out the 2 and the minus 2 because in the denominator, 3n minus 2 is a unit. Do not go crossing those two out. Alright, we'll pick up in the next video.